In this video tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate the fire Photoshop action. This is a stock photo I'll use for the example. I'll put a link to this guy down in the description if you want to download this photo to play around with the effect. So the way the action works is that you brush over your photo where you want to apply the fire. You play the action, in that area your brush converts into a fire effect. So I'll just click through a few more examples that I have here. So that's brushed over this area, so that's where I wanted to apply the fire. That's the result. Brush there. Create some more room here. So where was I? 6. So from that, brush there, like that. So I'll also show you how you can convert all the black smoke to white smoke, as you can see what I've done there. So it creates a bit of a different effect. Okay, so I'm just going to close all these tabs down. We'll start from scratch. Okay, so here is the base photo. And so the first thing we need to do is just double check that our Photoshop document is set up correctly, so we don't run into any errors. Okay, so I'm going to just close this down. Look into your layer panel, and the first thing you want to check is if your photo layer looks identical to this. So it should say background, have that lock symbol. Okay, if it doesn't, so for example, I'll just set it up so it doesn't. So if you open up your photo and it doesn't look like that, so you go to layer, new background from layer, and it will set it as the background. So you only need to do that step if it doesn't look like that there. Okay. Alright, so still in the layer panel, go up to the top right hand corner icon, go to panel options, right down the bottom here, make sure add copy to copy layers and groups is selected. I might just turn up my thumbnail size a bit. Okay, next go to image mode, make sure you're in RGB color mode, and 8 bits of channel is selected. Next, just double check the size of your photo. You can see mine here, 1700 by 3500 pixels. I would always recommend with photo effect actions to use high resolution photos. So with this fire action, I would recommend anywhere between 1500 to 4000 pixels. The best range that I've found with testing this action is around 2500 to 3500 pixels. So keep that in mind. Okay, cancel that. So now what we need to do is create a new layer. So go to layer, new layer, and this must be called brush, all in lowercase. Must be identical to that or the action won't work at all. Click OK. Now what we need to do is load up the brushes that came with the action. So if you just hit B on the keyboard, get your brushes out, and if you right click anywhere over the canvas, it will bring up all our brushes. So what I've got here is just the standard brushes. I want to replace all these with the fire brushes. So how to do that is go to this icon here, go to replace brushes, and select the firebrushes.avr file that came with the download, and you can see the fire brushes now pop up in here. And now I've left the soft brush here, which I'll explain why I've done that. So okay, so we've got our brush layer, and what you need to do with the brush layer is then brush over your photo, and that's the area that you're going to convert to fire. So yeah, if you right click anywhere over the canvas to bring up your brushes again, select the soft brush here, so that can be your brush that you can brush with over your photo, and you just pick any color, doesn't matter. and you just want to start brushing the areas of your photo that you want to convert to fire. You don't need to brush, the lines don't need to be too thick, because the fire actually grows around that area as well, so it won't be completely confined to that area. It grows around, which I'll show that a bit better after the action's finished. So I'm just going to brush down here, there, this other foot, go up here a bit. Okay, so that's done. Now I need to load up the actions panel. So go to Window, Actions. It'll pop up on the side here. Go to this top icon. Go to Load Actions. Select Fire.atn. Here it is here. And that's it. You're all done. That's all you need to do to set up the action. So when you click play on this action here, let me just bring this up. The action will take about a minute to play back, and every time you run the action, no matter if you brush the same area, you're going to get a completely different variation on the position of the flames, the rotation, so keep that in mind. So I'm just going to play the action now, and I'll just fast forward the video and get to the result, and we'll talk about the layer structure and what each layer does. Alright, so the action's stopped and you can see my result there. So I'm just going to minimize the actions panel and go into the layer panel now. So the first thing I want to do is collapse all these folders that are open. So to do that, just with the folder that's already selected, the fire folder, hold down Control Alt or Command Option on a Mac and click on this arrow. And that's collapsed all the folders. Okay, and I've left the brush layer on at the top here. So what I like to do, like I mentioned earlier, is that each time you run the action, you're going to get a completely different variation on the position and the rotation of the flames and the smoke. Every time it's going to be different. So if you wanted to run the action again, all you need to do is delete the fire folder, and you've got the brush layer there. So all you need to do is select the fire action and click play, and wait another minute and you'll get a new variation. So what I like to do with each photo that I've run the action on, I'll run the action, about 3 to 5 times, and I'll save out each Photoshop file, and then I'll compare them at the end, and I'll just basically pick which one I think's turned out the best. So I recommend you do something like that as well. Okay, so let's go inside the fire folder now and talk about all the layers. So this top one, it's just a simple color grade I've applied to your photo, so you can flick that one on and off. You don't have to use it. If you turn it off, that's just the natural look of the original look of the photo. Okay. Photo overlay, and I've got in brackets opacity. So just look at the opacity of this layer, it's at 30%. If I drag it to 100 and 0, just back and forth, you can see what that's doing there. It basically takes the area that you brushed, puts it on a separate layer, it's set the blend mode to soft light. So what it can do, it brings out a bit of detail, original detail of the photo. So if you look around, I'll zoom in here, around the gun as I sort of bring it from 0 to 100. See that there? So I play around with the opacity of that layer because it can bring out a bit of detail that's hidden underneath all those flames. So you might like it, you might not. It's there. I'll put that on about 40%. Embers folder, if I turn that one on and off, you can see that's just those, zoom in a bit here, those little sparks you can see flying around inside this folder. You can just double click on this layer here to change the color of those sparks. Here's the glowing embers layer. You can just hold down Alt or Option on a Mac and drag this down, create a copy of it. So if you want more, you can move them around. Now if you've got CS6 and above, if you just double click on this mask, you can play around with the density here, this density handle. You can see if I bring it to 0, there's a lot more sparks. Bring it up to here, 100%, there's a lot less. So play around with that. And one thing you might also want to do is I'll just duplicate this layer again. I'll just hold down Alt or Option on the Mac, and I'll bring it up here. Whoops, I'll just bring it up here. I'll just apply this lane mask. Now if I zoom out, Control T, I can scale that right up. I'll just move this around here so you can create bigger sparks that way. Just like that, and I can add a bit of blur into it. Just go filter blur, Gaussian blur, just blur that out a little bit like it's shooting up towards the camera. Okay. Yeah, I'll just delete that one. Okay, so that's the embers folder, pretty simple. Glow layer, so if you turn this one on and off, that just adds a glow from around the areas of the fire. So I'll go inside here. Again, you can just play around with this handle here and change the color of the glow. Here's the overall glow layer, so you can turn that on and off. So what I like to do here with this layer is basically just flick it on and off and take a look around the design and just pick any areas that I think that look better without the glow. Okay, so for example, around his leg here, I like it a bit more contrasted here without the glow. So what you do, just hit B on the keyboard, I'll right click and get that soft brush back out, and if I select the mask, grab a black, make sure it's black, and I can brush that away, so like there. So I'm basically just hiding that area of the overall glow layer, and if I flip that to white, you can brush it back in. So X, I can flip that back to black. So yeah, that's what I do, just flick it on and off, take a look around the design, maybe around here, looks a bit better without the glow. What about the gun? No, I think that looks fine. Okay, so that's the glow folder. Okay, moving down, so here's the flames, turn that on and off. You see without that, if you turn the glow off, you get another pretty cool effect. It's just the smoke and the sparks. Okay, so if you just wanted to use that, you can just turn the glow and the flames off. Okay, we'll go inside here. So this top layer here is a photo filter adjustment. So if you just double click on this, this just adds a bit of the, helps tone the flames a bit better. So if I bring it to 0, remove it, it's a bit yellowy, so what this does, it just sort of flattens out the colour a bit more. You can play around with the colours by just using this drop down menu there. Also take note is, if I just turn this up to 100, I'll crank it up to 100 a second. So what this layer basically does, and this mask here, you see that mask there? So everywhere in white is where that colour is going to be applied. Everywhere in black, it's not going to be applied. So you might take a look around and think, it doesn't look that great with this colour bleeding out this far, or around the gun there. That's too much. So what you can do again is just use a mask, and I can just grab a black brush because I want to remove it, and I can brush that away, just like that. But just remember, this is set to about 80% by default, so it's not going to be that strong. But if you're just looking around, like maybe between his feet here, it's a bit too much, so I can just brush that away. That's really just fine tuning, but just keep in mind that wherever there's a mask applied to a layer, you can hide any portion of that layer. Okay. Alright, so here's the flames. The 3 flame layers, 1, 2, 3 in orange, highlighted there. And if you turn them off one by one, you can see how they build. Just like that. So flames 2, it's kind of like the base texture. It's a bit of a grungy texture. Flames 3 has the more of the realistic looking flames, and they spread out the furthest. Like if you look around the gun, so that's the way it's always going to spread out the furthest from the area that you brush. And this one, it's kind of like the mid-range, so you can look at it as that being small, medium and large. Okay, now one thing to note about these layers is that a lot of their appearance is controlled by the brightness layer. So you can see these three layers here. So if I go inside, if I just double click on this one, you notice that I've pulled the brightness down a bit. And if I bring this back up, you see that there? So by default I've crushed it right down, but the original look is actually like that. You know, you can bring that up higher and higher, it just gets really intense. Keep that in mind, and again what I like to do with this layer is flick it on and off, take a look around the design, and you know what area looks better with more intense flames. You know, maybe around his knee here, you know, I'm flicking that on and off, that looks pretty cool there. Around his gun, that looks good up the top there. So again, I'll just use that mask, select it, hit B on the keyboard, and I'll just brush black into there to reveal that area. Turn it on and off again. Maybe a little bit around there. Around here. Okay, and so when I'm playing with this action, I like to just go down the line here and flick these layers on and off. You get a quick idea of how it affects the design, and sometimes you find out that you know you might not need that one, or it looks better with that one off. Okay, and I always play around with turning these on and off, and again just playing around with that middle handle, just like that. So you bring that right down, you really crush it down, it becomes a lot more red. You see as I drag that down, it's becoming red, and that's much more yellow. There. Okay, and there's also these color layers here, so you can turn these on and it will just apply a color to that specific flame. Now keep in mind that this layer here is applying an orange tint all the way down, so it's actually applying an orange tint on top of this blue. So what you could do is just hide this layer like that, and then it's much more of a prominent blue. You can see it's sort of, with that layer on, it's blending orange and blue, so that's why it's a lot more muted. Okay, that looks pretty cool, but I'll just turn that off. You know, if you wanted more flames, you could just duplicate the entire folder, hit Control or Command J on this folder, and then you've doubled up on all your layers, so you can then move all these layers around individually. Okay, that's the flames folder. Smoke. So you can see where the smoke helps is that if you turn the smoke off, you notice because it's on this side, it's quite a white background, you see the flames start to disappear. Well, where the smoke helps is that it puts the flames on a darker background, so then it's much more visible. See around the gun there, so I'll turn that on and off. Around his back there. But you know, the folders have got a mask as well, so if I turn that on and off, you might think, actually I prefer it, you know, around his leg here without the smoke. So I can just again hit B, get the brush out, brush black into there, and it's gone. You know, around here. So you don't have to have the smoke everywhere. You can control it with the folder mask as well. Same with the flames and the glows. We'll go inside here and I'll talk about how this is set up. So there are 3 black smoke layers in orange, 1, 2, 3. If you wanted to duplicate them to make them much darker, just again hold down Alt or Option on the Mac, drag down to create a copy. You see that there. Or again, you can duplicate the entire smoke folder. It's much more intense. But what I've done also is these layers in blue, I've got white smoke 1, 2 and 3, and I've got a question mark next to it. So I'm basically just asking if you wanted to change that to a white smoke, and all you need to do is flip on the visibility for that layer, like that. And what that does, it basically, it just inverts the black to white. So then you can use complete, all white smoke, and it creates a completely different effect. Okay, so just play around, turning them on one by one. You might prefer the design with white smoke, or you could create a balance. You might like it with that one on, but you think it's a little bit too strong, so you could just go up, hover your mouse over the word opacity, click, hold and drag to the left, and you can sort of reduce the amount of that layer, so you can have it about 50%. Here's 100, 0. Okay, so create a balance that way. Turn that off. Just down the bottom here, by default, it's just a white smoke layer. It's very subtle, it just helps with the overall effect. What's the default opacity? That's 70. I said it's very subtle. If I bring it up the top here, it's probably going to be more prominent. You can see that there. It's right down the bottom. Okay, and that is essentially it. Very easy to use, lots of fun to use. And one last thing that I like to do, if I don't want to use this color grade, I'll just zoom out. I've got a set of 200 photo color looks called Photo Master, and inside Photo Master is a folder called Master Looks. And so what I might do is just I'll merge this entire design onto one layer. So I'll hold down Control Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E on a Mac. So now I've got the design on one layer here, so I can just delete this, flatten that, delete that. So there's my design. And if I go inside the Master Looks folder, you've got all these different color options. And so all you need to do with these is just click on one, click play, and it'll apply a color grade to your photo. And the way these actions work is that it creates a color layer and a luminosity layer. So if I turn color off, luminosity is just like brightness and contrast, and the opacity of each one of these layers it's created is at 50%. So you can either crank it up to 100 or 0. So you can see that there, so move it from 0 to 100. Same with color, I can bring that to 0. So I could just use the luminosity if I wanted to, just like that. Color, I can bring that to 100. Intense. And you can stack multiple ones, so I can bring that, leave that around there. I can play a different one, like warming. And then again, it creates a color and luminosity layer, and you can change the order of those. You can see that there. So you can play around the opacity of those. So lots of different possibilities here with Photo Master, lots of different actions you can play. I'll just delete those. I might leave that one on. Alright, so that's it. That's how you use the action. Like I said, very simple, a lot of fun to use. But if you're having troubles with it, just send me an email and I'll help you out. But if not, have fun using the action. Thanks.